Well, thank you guys very much. I don't know whose idea it was to put us up to lunch, but I feel like we're all feeling a little sluggish. So maybe we get up and do some jumping jacks or something. Maybe? No. Okay. So we're here to talk about AI and technology, the trends and predictions and stuff like that. It's going to be rather interesting. Push, push, push again.
It's a traditional technology you have to worry about.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It keeps breaking up on you. But I just want to start with this in the background a little bit and just kind of kick it off a little bit. But with me, as Jeff introduced, we have Tricia and Daniel. And if you guys want to introduce yourselves.
Hi, everyone. Tricia Allen. I lead business development for Hotspex Media, which is a digital media agency, as well as I lead business development for a proprietary contextual product we have called Reticle AI, which uses technology in order to leverage emotion within digital content.
Awesome. And Dan Liebermann, I'm a managing director at Publicis Sapient. Publicis Sapient is the digital business transformation arm of Publicis Group. So I'm in the strategy practice. I'm a consultant, but I've also been working with Publicis Group on their AI solution.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for joining me. So we have something cool to show them, right? Just out in the lobby earlier on, maybe 5 minutes ago, we discovered something cool and figured we want to share with you guys. So Tricia, without further ado.
Yes, Roland?
Would you like to show them the cool technology you have on you?
I would. So the cool technology I have on my face currently are some AI glasses. And when I was outside and I saw them, I said, is this like GPT on my face? I have to give full props to Snapdragon and Qualcomm. Thank you very much. Daniel doesn't have his glasses either. If someone could bring them, that would be amazing.
I'm a Luddite compared.
Yeah.
Why are you being such a hater? So I'm going to just play around with this for a minute. We'll have some fun, break the ice after lunch, and ask it some interesting questions. So, hey Meta, what am I looking at right now? Don't laugh at that.
To ask about what you see, start your question with the phrase, "Hey Meta, look and."
Okay, that didn't work. Hey Meta, what am I looking at?
You are looking at a presentation screen in front of an audience.
Hey Meta, what is the content on the presentation screen?
The presentation screen appears to be displaying information related to ergonomics and workplace safety. It shows an illustration of a person sitting at a desk with proper posture. Some text that is not clearly visible from this distance. The content seems to focus on promoting healthy work habits and preventing injuries in the workspace.
Okay, that couldn't have set us up for a better panel if we did not plan that answer.
Not at all.
Clearly, you can see that there can be challenges with AI, and that's what we're going to talk about,
Yes.
right?
Thank you. Thank you very much for setting the stage. And yes, that was ad-libbed. We did not plan that, but it works out very well. So without further ado, what do you believe has been AI's biggest impact so far?
Yeah, it's a small question.
Yes.
So I could talk about any of the different applications, but actually in my position as a consultant, what I see as the biggest impact is people's excitement, readiness, and willingness to do that. But also, it's something I think we do want to talk about today is people are ready to make the investments in a lot of like the eat the vegetables components of data, like getting their foundational data in place, all the boring stuff that no one ever really cared about, that you could always put off a year or 2 years. Everyone's ready to make it now. So actually, I can't think of any other technology trend that has changed everyone's mind as quickly. They have to worry about something now in my entire career. So kind of a trick response. I think it's actually the people's disposition towards it that's been the biggest.
That's interesting. Tricia?
Kind of a similar answer, but I think it has to do with we as marketers and in the marketing community, we've embraced it, whether or not we're afraid of it, whether or not we've fully integrated into our organizations. we are embracing. I think what we're forgetting, and we're talking to ourselves a little bit, in that the consumers may not be as on board as we are, and they may be distrustful about certain technologies, and are we being transparent with those technologies that we're using? How is that impacting, privacy and all of those things? So aside from the productivity and obviously automation and being able to do things faster, I think we also just need to be cognizant of how fast are we moving and are consumers keeping up?
That's a great point. And Daniel, you raised an interesting proposition, because the next thing I wanted to tackle was functions, right? So you said vegetables. Okay, we have your broccolis, your tomatoes, your whatevers. What are the top two?
It's good vegetables.
Yeah, maybe tomatoes, not broccoli. Ugh. Maybe with cheese. Sorry. What are the two top functions that you see in your conversations with people that they're wanting to lean into, right? Because when you think about AI, it can do any and everything. And I started broad on purpose, and we've talked about this. But as we start to narrow it down, and Tricia, like you mentioned, people are adopting, it's becoming trendy, all that. What are two functions that you guys in your world have noticed your clients asking for or wanting as part of your team?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So I think content generation is a huge thing, right? And it's probably one of the more talked about topics today. I think then the nuance on how you actually succeed in it is really challenging. Meaning, like, how do you have the right data to know that you're going to generate the right content? How do you review that content when you don't have 1,000 pieces of content? You have 100,000 pieces of content.
Yeah.
But there's something about it so tangible. You say, oh, I made an image out of something I typed. This is amazing. I want as much of this as possible.
Yeah.
But then actually achieving that at scale is very difficult. But that's obviously an immediate drive. And then the other thing that maybe counterintuitively is, I mean, you guys all probably deal with a lot of data. But being able to mine that data, it's not on necessarily the creative side, but like the opportunities for natural language querying of structured and unstructured data to get to the insight that otherwise would have taken you months or weeks. And then being able to query, and this is where the eat your vegetables piece comes in, getting the right data in place. So actually what you query is differentiated knowledge. And as a person who can't necessarily write a SQL query now, but I can type in English, all of a sudden I can learn these things quickly. And that's an efficiency and effectiveness play, but people see the value in that. And we're seeing a lot of people asking for that.
For more
reporting, awesome reporting.
A lot of reporting, yeah. No, that's a very good point. And I think a couple of panels earlier, they made the same point. Throwing the 5 topics into it and then having to create a PowerPoint and then re-summarizing it. So it's a very interesting point.
I would just add to that from a targeting perspective, I think AI is becoming more and more important, especially, I'm going to say, the dreaded topic of deprecation of cookies. AI is going to start to be that topic that we're sick of hearing too, if we're not already. But the fact that they're from a privacy standpoint and targeting standpoint, AI is being adopted by many marketers now in order to customize messaging and be in that right place, right time, right mindset for those advertisers that don't have first-party data and don't have the ability to switch over right away. There's a lot of testing and learning that's going on in the marketplace. And I think to Daniel's point, it's also about automating things like reporting.
Yes.
When I was on the agency side, it used to drive me crazy that I would get a report from the trading team and it would show me a summary of the numbers. That's great, but what's the insight?
Yes.
So being able to use AI to really develop and hone in on those insights, I think is super valuable.
That's a fantastic point. My team, I talk to them all the time, and I always draw this for them. It's not just about the data, it's moving data to insights to actions, right? So if it's data, we can all read the numbers, but what do the numbers mean, right? What's behind the numbers and what do I take from it? What can I do about it? So it's such a great point.
Yeah. I think, sorry.
Yeah, no, please.
I don't want to break the flow here.
Jump on in.
You guys are making me think. I think there's 2 like interesting shifts in how our roles are viewed in the 2 sort of areas I talked about, at least. A lot of people talk about going from creatives to makers, which I didn't always understand at first because it's not my background, as some people have here, being creatives. It's like, I can't make everything. I can't illustrate in every style possible as a creative, but now suddenly I can. So I kind of moved like downstream in what I can do. And then on this analytics and insight side, there's this, well, now strategists kind of move upstream to become the data scientists. And so there's this role expansion in both cases, which I think is super interesting. It's blurring, it's actually making those jobs, I think, more complex, counter to what people would think, which is like, it's taking the job away from you. It's actually suddenly asking for a whole new set of skills for both of those types of roles.
Yeah, such a good point. So the big fear that we had, right, is going to take away jobs. Not taking away jobs, but it's actually making our jobs easier and giving us more ability to do more things at the same time, like it's in blurring lines between the different roles and making us a lot more unified.
Yeah, and I think the big, in my mind, the big question is like, okay, well, there's a supply today, or there's a demand today, and we see that the supply is going to be easier to fulfill because we're going to get better and better. But I think what no one knows is, well, actually the demand is going to go up. And the simple example is like, you don't need 1,000 images, you need 10,000 images. Or you actually don't need an insight in a weekly report. You need 100 insights a day. And so all of a sudden, like you're getting better. There's demand for more performance. And yeah, you have better supply. You can fulfill it faster with these tools. But all of a sudden, this has often been the case historically, there's a lot more shit to do.
Yeah,
it's valuable.
It's giving me more work to do. We'll see if that's a good thing. So actually, Tricia, you mentioned reports and all that, and brings an interesting point. And also to set the stage, this is a reverse panel, right? It's not usually what we do or what Brand Innovators does. I'm on the brand side. These are the sellers and or the vendors, so I get to grill them a little bit. So just a little bit of context there. So if it looks like I'm going hard, that's why, because they always do. I've been on the other side. KPIs. How do we measure that AI is doing what I needed to do? You talk about content creation. You know, we're going from 1,000 to 10,000. We talked about targeting and all that. Testing and learning. Testing and learning only works if I know there is a bar or KPI that I set out to meet, right? Did I meet it? Did I not meet it? How do I reiterate? How do I go back out there, right? So let's just simplify. What are the KPIs for AI in our worlds?
That's a very broad question because I think it depends on what you're using the AI for. In my wheelhouse of what I do every day, the KPIs are media KPIs. And I could talk all afternoon about my frustration with how tests are being run. And the KPIs are comparing benchmarks to the time when we have cookies versus when we don't. Well, that's not really a fair test.
No.
So I think, setting up a measurement framework that not just the agency, but the brand marketer aligns to as well, that ultimately aligns to their business goals and objectives. Because I think the more and more we think about, you can have a great click-through rate or you can have a great viewability as an example. But where's Waldo? Waldo's on the screen, but maybe I didn't see him. And maybe I'm using some fancy new technology that's helping me with that targeting. But if I'm using more advanced technology, why am I using the same outdated KPIs? So I don't know that anyone has actually come up with the holy grail of what the KPIs should be.
Have they thought about it?
They're all thinking about it.
So
I think. Go ahead.
Let me make it a little more specific. So to the point you made for targeting, for example, and test and learning, how would I determine if it did its job?
I think that you have to look at engagement. You have to look at site visits, time spent on the site. You have to look at attention. That's a new metric that is very prevalent in the media industry right now in terms of understanding that attention. It takes that viewability beyond. So it's, yes, I saw it, but did I notice it? This is saying, yes, I saw it and I noticed it. So in order to validate whether the AI is effective, the testing and learning has to happen. But the other thing that we find is that, and I'm speaking as a vendor, agencies and brand marketers want to know, well, how is it going to work? Well, if we don't test it, how are we going to know if it works? I can't sit here and tell you, for HP, Roland, we're going to deliver a 97% VCR and your ROAS is going to go up by 30%. I would love to do that.
I would love that too.
But let's be honest, we are still flying the plane as we're building it.
Yes.
So we need people to come and test and work with us and fail fast. I'm not saying if it doesn't work, then let's fail fast and move on. But you can't hold us to a number that's outdated, as I said, when we have this new technology that we're holding it against.
I have a follow-up to that, but Daniel, do you have anything to add on to it?
I think that's a great point. You're making me think that kind of framing it as the difference between like output measures versus outcome measures, right? So right now, everyone wants output measures and everyone thinks in terms of output measures to keep beating this example into the ground. Like I get 100,000 images versus 1,000 images.
It.
Everyone sees that as being better, but no one knows if it has a better outcome yet. And I think today that's fine. People are fine with better outputs. I think in 6 months or a year, people are going to demand better outcomes, which is basically better MROI. And I don't think that looks different from the way things are measured today. People are just not as focused on the bottom line yet because there's innovation in the output space, which makes sense to me. But I don't think, it's when I first saw like someone generate an image for marketing for AI, I was like, holy shit, this is unbelievable. Like everything is solved. And then now a year later, it seems like the norm. And I think a year from now, it's going to be like, all right, well, what did I get from doing it? And so that's coming quick.
Such a good point. I'm getting the 5-minute check, and I've not even gone to my second question yet. Oh, God. Okay. Can we get an hour? That'd be great. Okay, so let's just go into the challenges. We're talking about a lot of challenges. I think this would be a great place to go. So I also want to give time for some questions, additional questions and stuff like that. So of the challenges that clients are facing implementing it, again, in your worlds, right? Which ones do you see phasing out? I think the output and outcome is one of them, right? We're going to phase out the outputs and then start to focus on outcomes. Are there any others you'd like to touch on?
I think the fear that they're not going to have a job is going to phase out. I can't remember who said it earlier. Your job's not going away, just the role that you play in that job is going to change. So if I were you in this room, I would be actively looking to upskill and future-proof yourself. So I think that challenge will dissipate. We know that human oversight is still very important when it comes to AI. We had a perfect example right at the beginning.
Yes.
So those creative directors and the creative types, and you saw it with Manscaped, that wasn't AI generated. You still need that strategic thinking, because if you're using AI for all of that, we're all going to be running the same ads for the same brands, and then that's going to be boring and not make sense. And how do you differentiate?
It's such a good point. That actually brings me here, a mild connection to this, but let's go to this a little bit, right? So needing the human intervention in there, right? One of the challenges that we've experienced, and I think this was a news article about a month ago in the Time Magazine Person of the Year, People of the Year, however they put it, Taylor Swift and all that. I think a lot of us had seen this article online. I put a little summary on there. But this is one of the challenges that we've experienced with AI so far, right? So let's tackle it. Daniel.
Oh, okay, great. You really are grilling me to solve it. So we think a lot like, where does the human in the loop fit in this? So so with Publicis Group, we're using this term like human plus and human principles in how we look at it, which is both from an ethical perspective, but also from just the perspective of how does the job change and how do you help the person do their job better? I think in the learning curve, you're seeing like, well, you need humans in the loop, and you don't really understand how bad it could truly be until you take them out. I'll tie this into your last question too, which I think the biggest challenge is actually just the complexity. Like it's such and then plug for consulting, of course, which simplifies complexity.
Yeah, why not?
It's such a massively complex space changing so quickly that you're going to have a story like this and many stories worse than this upcoming, because we do all digital stuff. In the last like 10 to 20 years, you kind of knew the problem space. You kind of knew what it was. Like you could paint it from a template with a couple degrees of freedom. And now every week it's a totally different space. And here's an example of like, I think this is actually a totally fine way to learn something valuable.
Yeah.
It sucked for Time Magazine. This is kind of zen, but it's part of the process.
I mean, I would add to this that it goes to show you, because, double verify, and all due respect to double verify, but AI is not perfect. So here you are trying to be brand safe, trying to ensure that you're doing right for all of you amazing brand marketers. And your agency potentially missed one of the biggest stories with billions of impressions that were potentially available to associate your ad with, because it was deemed to be around feminism. We had specific experience with this at Reticle, to be honest, because we came across this. And so we had our product team go in-house and try and understand, for that content, how is it categorized? Did it get blocked? Was it considered brand unsafe? And yes, it's a bit of a plug, but it's a fact that we actually categorized it. And the reason that we did is because we use both human intervention and human labelers, as well as the technology. And especially when you're talking about emotion, you can't leave emotion to chance, and you can't leave it to a computer to be able to do everything.
Yeah.
So I think that there's some great learning coming out of there. I think we're going to see more learning coming out of that. But again, not a complete failure, just a lesson learned.
How much rope though are we gonna allow, right? It's the learning phase we got to exit the learning phase at some point, right? People have to make money. We have stakeholders to report to, investors to pay, right? How much of a allowance for these kind of errors are we gonna allow in this world of AI, right? Because it's generative, right? So it's not gonna get to a point where it stops. It keeps going, right? So it's gonna keep learning and making mistakes. But is there gonna be a threshold for allowing mistakes or accepting that mistakes do happen or errors or whatever we want to kind of
test and learn? You can test and learn.
So continue to call this
right. I mean, there's two things I think that I see driving the market right now. One is extreme FOMO, right? Which is no one wants to be on the outside of this. And then I think the other thing is just this idea of readiness and being as prepared as possible. And so I do think where it is right now, it's so unknown, the future, as it always is, but like even more so now, that the driver of like being in it versus being out of it is so strong. And then learning and preparing yourself as much as possible, possibly by failing, are actually the right things to be doing right now. And some people are going to actually get wins instead of fails. And they're only going to get that by playing.
Well, hopefully it's not me.
We're here for you.
Yeah, I can afford that. Like I said, I have a lot more questions, but I'd like to open to the audience now for any questions.
Do you want to ask one of your questions to Marketer GPT if you have no questions?
Let's see. Yes.
Or we could ask the glasses question.
Yeah, the glasses. In your perspective, what will AI be 1 year, 3 years, 5 years from now? So what Tricia is doing is she created an AI bot thing, GPT, specifically focused on marketing. So you can ask it marketing-focused questions, and it gives you marketing-focused answers. So we're going to put it to the test and see how intelligent is it really. The trend for AI in the next 1, 3, 5 years.
It's loading, if anyone's curious.
It's thinking.
What will the trend for AI be in marketing between the next 1, 3, and 5 years?
In the next 1 year, AI in marketing will focus on automation and personalization. Marketers will use AI to handle routine tasks like customer segmentation, content recommendations, and chatbots for customer service. This helps businesses operate more efficiently and improve customer experiences. Over the next 3 years, AI will evolve to offer deeper insights through advanced analytics. Predictive analytics and sentiment analysis will become more common, allowing marketers to anticipate customer needs and tailor their strategies more effectively. AI-driven content creation tools will also improve, enabling more sophisticated and personalized marketing campaigns. In 5 years, AI will likely become integral to strategic decision-making in marketing. We'll see AI systems collaborating with human marketers to develop and refine complex strategies. However, human oversight will remain crucial to address ethical considerations and ensure the AI's actions align with the brand's values. The collaborative approach will balance efficiency and creativity, ensuring that AI enhances marketing efforts without replacing human judgment.
I love how confident the AI is.
Yeah, right.
Like, I said no one could predict the future, but AI apparently
just
could
predicts
predict the future.
But it's confident,
That's
but
what's
let's
gonna
also remember, so a human prompted it. So the AI is only as good as the human that is programming it, that is putting the content into it. So I feel like it might have just wrapped up a nice little bow and how we started versus how we're ending, in that AI is not going away. Yes, thank you, Marketing GPT. He's very excited to talk to you guys.
To keep going.
You know, it's not going anywhere. It's like the internet is hello, it's here. My kids don't understand how I functioned without internet growing up, but that's another story. We just have to start figuring out how to embrace it, how to do it in a low risk manner, but test. I can't enforce that enough. Test.
Test people. You said we had a question? Yes.
Yes. What advice would you give to your clients that you're working with around disclosing when AI is being used as part of, say, the content production lifecycle?
That's a great, I can start and then let you build on. So content provenance is really important. And so there's an organization, C2PA, that we partner with, which basically is working on a standard for creating lineage and traceability in content. Because one, there's having brand guidelines, ethical guidelines, right? We see a lot of with clients and help clients with their own AI guidelines. But then there's also like, that's what went into producing the file or the image. Once it's out there in the wild, how do you create as much transparency as possible if something is true or not? So it actually isn't quite there yet, but getting to adopt these content provenance standards, but also the branding halo of leading the push around content provenance is really important. So if a brand comes out and says, not only are we doing this, but we really care about it, and we're going to be one of the first ones to have all our shampoo ads tell you that it was made by AI, there's a great halo effect and like an ethical leader effect for those companies.
There's actually an interesting study, and if you'd like to get a link to it, I can give it to you after. Publicis, Daniel's Holco, actually did it with Yahoo, and they tested this exact idea of what happens if we have two of the exact same ads where it's an AI-generated visual. One is transparent that the AI was generated, or that the visual was generated through AI. One is not. Which ad do you think was better received by the consumer? That's correct. Because consumers want transparency and they're okay with us using it. They just want to know when we are using it. And that's going to, if you're not, you're potentially eroding the trust, which is definitely something you don't want to be doing.
Yeah, if you're on the Midjourney subreddit, as I am a lot, like there's so many people posting pictures like this has to be AI, right?
Yeah.
and you can tell that that echoes to, or that extends to the consumer relationship, where if someone is sitting there scratching their head saying like, I think I've been duped, they'd rather just be told they've been duped, honestly.
Yeah, and the ethics in AI was a whole other thing we wanted to tackle, but clearly not enough time. Roundtables later, let's talk some more. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.